What in the hell? Hey, what the hell? Hi, it's Nick Digilio. Thanks for checking out my YouTube channel. Subscribe, it's fun. New videos daily, all kinds of cool stuff. Also, I do content and videos and all kinds of cool stuff on a Patreon page. I'd love you to check it out and donate. Pick a tier, make a donation, become a patron. You become a patron, you get bonus material and bonus content, including the behind-the-scenes story of what really happened at WGN. Help out here, the contents that I do here on the YouTube channel and on Patreon. That's all DIY, and I want to keep doing it, but I need a little help. So donate. Become a Patreon. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Pick a tier, donate, helps out. You get bonus material and all kinds of cool stuff. And check out my podcast. It is at the Radio Misfits Podcast Network, RadioMisfits.com. The Nick D Podcast, new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. All right, I was watching Seth Meyers, the program from last night, and one of his guests was Milo Ventimiglia. And Milo Ventimiglia, who you remember is the jagoff who gets killed by a crockpot in that This Is Us show, which is a show that I had very little patience for. I watched a few episodes of it, you know, when it debuted like 4 or 5 years ago or whenever it was. I watched like 5-6 episodes of it, and I didn't. Everybody's crying, and good cast. I just didn't give a shit about what was happening, and then Milo Ventimiglia gets killed by a fucking crockpot. And I was like, all right, that's amazing. But people love the show. They love it. I don't quite understand it, but they love it, and they cry and, every episode. All right, whatever. I cried during every episode of Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. That, to me, was a much better show, which, of course, got canceled. Well, anyway, I don't want to get into that. But Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, I can understand why people cry, because I cried like every single episode of Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which I think is about 8 capillion times better than This Is Us. But anyway, so that Milo jagoff, the guy who gets killed by a crockpot, was on. And they were talking about the time that he spent on Gilmore Girls. Now, for those of you who might not know, I love the Gilmore Girls. I love Gilmore Girls. Gilmore Girls is one of the greatest TV shows of all time. I love it. I adore the cast. Season 6 got a little shaky. Season 7 was shit. That was when Amy Sherman-Palladino and Daniel Palladino left, and the show really tanked, and it became garbage. But then they brought it back in 2016 for those 4 short movies, the seasons, fall, winter, spring, summer. And it was great. They brought Amy back, and everybody was cool, and all right. So Milo played Jess on Gilmore Girls, one of the 3 jagoffs that Rory dated. The main 3 jagoffs that Rory dated, all 3 of them were jagoffs. None of them were good enough for Rory, for Alexis Bledel. And they were Dean, Jess, and Logan. All 3 of them were jagoffs. All of them. And this is how I describe. Logan was the worst. Jess was terrible also. And Dean was terrible also. Logan, though, was the worst. This is how I describe them in one word, and they all start with D. Logan, douchebag. Jess, dick. Dean, doormat. That's how you describe the 3 jagoffs that dated him. Now, the thing was, Jess was this sort of rebellious character, was supposed to be smart because he read paperback books, and he made a couple of Bukowski references, and he wore a Dinosaur Jr. t-shirt, and I guess that made him cool. Jess was a jagoff. But anyway, he became kind of a popular character on the show as one of Rory's jagoff boyfriends, and they were going to spin him off. They were going to spin him off in a show called Jess. And so there was one episode of Gilmore Girls, if you go back and watch it, that was all dedicated to Jess moving to California. Okay? So he left Stars Hollow in Connecticut, moved out west to California to find his real father, and then start over out there. And Sherilyn Fenn was going to be a regular on it, and this entire episode of Gilmore Girls was dedicated to setting this up, and it was going to be a spinoff. And this is not the first time, obviously, that entire episodes of an established TV show were dedicated to a spinoff, to start a spinoff. Well, the Jess thing never happened. I guess at the time, the network pulled out the money out of it. They didn't think it was going to work. And so that got pulled. It never happened. So the Jess spinoff never happened, which means Jess came back a few more times during the run of Gilmore Girls So we had to put up with the jag-off coming back to Stars Hollow. But anyway, so that was a spin-off that never happened, even though there's an episode of the show that exists. So that got me to thinking about spin-offs and terrible ones. And there have been a ton of spin-offs. There have been a lot of, like, very successful spin-offs and very good spin-offs. And a lot of people forget that really successful shows actually were spin-offs. Like Happy Days was a spin-off. Happy Days was not an original show. It was a spin-off of Love American Style. There was an episode of Love American Style, which was this anthology series from the late 60s and early 70s, that had different stories each episode with different stars. One of the stories was about love in Happy Days or something in the 50s, and it was Ron Howard and Marion Ross and all those people. And it was a very highly rated episode of Love American Style, and Happy Days became a spin-off of that, of Love American Style. Andy Griffith Show was a spin-off. The Andy Griffith Show was a spin-off of the Danny Thomas Show. Danny Thomas actually drove through Mayberry in one episode, and that's where you got to meet Andy Griffith. And the Andy Griffith Show, a lot of people forget that was actually a spin-off as well. I do not have COVID. So other spin-offs, like some people forget, that some of these things were spin-offs. So then, of course, Happy Days, because, was a spin-off, also spawned some successful spin-offs, including Laverne and Shirley, and Mork and Mindy. They were very successful spin-offs. All in the Family had a lot of spin-offs. Maude was a spin-off of All in the Family, which spawned Good Times, which was a spin-off of Maude. The Jeffersons were a spin-off of All in the Family. And then All in the Family had some other spin-offs that weren't very good. I'll get into that. The Simpsons was a spin-off. Some people forget that. It was a spin-off of the Tracy Ullman Show. The Tracy Ullman variety comedy sketch show featured these very short Matt Groening Simpsons episodes, very short, shorts that were on as part of Tracy Ullman. People forget that. The Simpsons is a spin-off. And then, of course, you have Law & Order. They had 27 different spin-offs. You got all those stupid-ass Chicago shows that suck, but they hire my friends, and they keep a lot of people in business here in Chicago, so that's cool, even though the shows blow. But you got 27 different Chicago shows. There's 27 different NCIS shows. And CSI or whatever the hell it is, the one with, David Caruso putting on sunglasses and shit. Those were all spin-offs. But then there are the spin-offs that, like Jess, the spin-off from Gilmore Girls that never really happened. And then there are the spin-offs that happen that suck. And some of these are just ridiculous. Like, for instance, I guess one of the most notorious ones is Joey, which was the spin-off of Friends, where it took Matt LeBlanc's character, Joey, and he was the only one that got a spin-off of the Friends on that show. Now, Friends is a show that I couldn't get through. I've seen one full episode of Friends. And that's because I was stuck in a plane at LaGuardia on the tarmac. We couldn't get to a gate. So we were sitting on the tarmac at LaGuardia for like 2 hours to find an open gate. LaGuardia, like the shittiest airport ever. Anyway, so we were stuck in the plane. We couldn't get off, so one of the flight attendants popped in a video cassette. This was back in the days when they popped in a VHS of a Friends episode. And that's the only time I ever saw an entire Friends episode, because I was stuck on a fucking plane and I couldn't change the channel. But Friends is one of those shows that I would watch 5-10 minutes here and there and go, what am I watching? And I'd immediately change the channel. Every time I watched it, every time I attempted to watch it, I just thought it was 6 of the most obnoxious jag-offs that you could possibly put into one show. I went on to like a few of those jag-offs. Basically, just one. I like Lisa Kudrow. Everybody else can blow it out their ass. But I like Lisa Kudrow. I thought Lisa Kudrow was great, and I still have always been a fan of hers. But I've never watched a full episode except for being stuck on a plane. So I don't understand a lot of people. I used to watch it, I'll tell you this. I used to have it on in my studio at WGN with the sound off while I was doing my radio show, and I'd kind of look up because we had TV monitors in the studio, and so Friends was on, like they'd show like 3 or 4 episodes in the middle of the night on GN on TV, and so I'd see it. So sometimes I'd see people walking around with a fucking turkey on their head, or I don't know. But anyway, so Friends. So Joey was one of the most notorious spinoffs, and I never watched it because I never watched Friends. But that's considered like one of the worst spinoffs of all time. How about the Lone Gunman? I actually liked the Lone Gunman. Lone Gunman was an X-Files spinoff. Lone Gunman were these three conspiracy theory nutcases who Mulder and Scully would go to for help on cases. And then these three guys got their own show. I actually thought the Lone Gunman was cool. Considered to be one of the worst spinoffs of all time, and it was a complete bomb. It got canceled after one season. I'm a fan of the Lone Gunman. I thought that show was pretty cool. How about the Tortellis? Spinoff of Cheers. Now, Cheers did have one great spinoff, and that was Frasier, obviously, which was a great show, and I think ran just as many, if not as many seasons or more than Cheers. But the Tortellis was a spinoff with Dan Hedaya and Gene Kasem. Dan Hedaya, who played Carla's ex-husband, and then completely unlikable scumbag character who they decided they thought it would be good to have a spinoff. Terrible show. Terrible. The Tortellis. Terrible. One of the legendary terrible spinoffs. And then you have Three's a Crowd, which was the spinoff of Three's Company, where they wanted to keep John Ritter on TV after Three's Company had been canceled. So they did Three's a Crowd with John Ritter. I don't remember who his wife was on that show, or his girlfriend was on that show, because she was terrible. And then Robert Mandan from Soap was the father-in-law on it. Awful show. Ropers was another spinoff of Three's Company. Terrible. But Jeffrey Tambor was the crazy next-door neighbor on that show. But yeah, the Ropers spinoff was not good. How about After MASH? The MASH spinoff. This featured Father Mulcahy, Klinger, and Colonel Potter. Three of the most unmemorable characters in the history of MASH. After MASH was fucking terrible. I mean, seriously, terrible. And MASH, of course, was considered one of the most critically acclaimed and one of the best and most quality TV shows of all time. And then on the opposite end, there's After MASH, which was considered just awful. Another spinoff of All in the Family, Gloria, which was a spinoff based on Sally Struthers' character, and she was like a veterinarian assistant, a single mom, like she divorced. So Rob Reiner wasn't in it. None of the characters from All in the Family were in it. And it was just like single mom comedy with Sally Struthers. Awful. And Norman Lear didn't have anything to do with it. Not really sure how it got the okay, but Norman Lear creatively had nothing to do with it. Terrible. Gloria, terrible spinoff. Speaking of awful spinoffs, Archie Bunker's Place, which was a spinoff of All in the Family. After Edith passed away, he took over the bar on the corner, became Archie Bunker's Place. Danielle Buebla was in it, and it was terrible. And yeah, Carol O'Connor was the main guy behind that show, like creatively. Awful. Archie Bunker's. How about Beverly Hills Bunts? Remember Beverly Hills Bunts with what's his ass, Dennis Franz, who would become Sipowicz later? Beverly Hills Bunts was a spinoff of Hill Street Blues, and it was like a wacky sitcom with this Bunts character who was like sort of comic relief for the serious Hill Street Blues show. Beverly Hills Bunts. Go back and watch an episode of that or two. Try not to vomit. Time of Your Life was a spinoff of Party of Five with Jennifer Love Hewitt. Jennifer Love Hewitt. And it was her character spun off from Party of Five. I love Party of Five. I love that show. And I loved her on it. And so I watched Time of Your Life. It wasn't very good. But yeah. Jennifer Love Hewitt had been in a lot of TV shows that were bad. She's on that 911 show now going, what's your emergency? She does a lot of that. I'm a fan of Jennifer Love Hewitt because I think she's very charming. I think she's funny, and I like her, in TV shows. And it doesn't hurt that she's unbelievably hot. The Client List, where she played like a masseuse, who was like a sexy masseuse. That was one of the worst shows ever, and I never missed an episode. Jennifer Love Hewitt. There was a lot of skin in that, a lot of stripping, there was a lot of Jennifer Love Hewitt in that show. And The Client List. It was one of the worst shows in television history, and I've seen every single episode at least once. Yeah. Booker. Remember Booker with the Grieco? With the Richard Grieco? That was a spinoff of the 21 Jump Streets with Richard Grieco. Booker. Remember when Richard Grieco was hot for about 20 minutes? Best thing about Richard Grieco was his appearance in the Roxbury movie, Night at the Roxbury. Booker was ridiculous. That show was goddamn. Remember If Looks Could Kill? The movie that was going to make Richard Grieco a big movie star? If Looks Could Kill? Oh, Grieco. I wonder what Grieco's up to now. The finest moment in Grieco's career was being in the Roxbury movie. Booker, another brilliant one. Now, here's one that I don't even remember. Buddies. Does anybody remember Buddies? This was a spinoff of Home Improvement, okay? Home Improvement. And it starred Dave Chappelle and Jim Breuer. And this is before Half-Baked. This is before they've made, one of the most legendary pot comedies of all time. But yeah, it was a spinoff of, I guess they appeared on one episode of Home Improvement with Jagoff Tim Allen. And so Buddies was a spinoff. I think it lasted like 5 episodes. I've never seen it. I didn't even know it existed. I was looking around and I saw this Buddy. What the fuck is Buddies? Dave Chappelle, Jim Breuer, wacky spinoff of Home Improvement. No pot involved at all. So I'm not sure how you can watch anything with Jim Breuer and not be high. What an idiot that guy is. But anyway, yeah, never heard of it. Buddies. Let's see. Hello, Larry, which was a spinoff of Different Strokes. This was with McLean Stevenson and Kim Richards. But McLean Stevenson, who was like so awesome, really funny guy, but was in so many shitty TV shows. He was in a show where he played a priest called I'm a Priest. I can't remember what it was called, but it was, hey, look, I'm a priest. Hey, enjoy the priest. And then Hello, Larry, and he was on so many terrible shows. The McLean Stevenson Show was another sitcom that he was on that was awful. But the thing that was terrible about that was McLean Stevenson was really talented and really witty and really funny. I mean, he left MASH, and once he left MASH, a curse followed him. He kept doing really shitty shows. I remember liking Hello, Larry. I remember enjoying it. I had a crush on Kim Richards, but I remember enjoying that show. And then there's Grady. You remember Grady, which was the spinoff of Sanford and Son, where Whitman Mayo got his own show? You remember that season where Grady took over the Sanford business and the house and lived with Lamont? Because off camera, Red Fox refused to go back to work unless he got like a huge pay raise. So he was fighting with the producers, his agents. They were negotiating this contract because Red Fox was like, I want more money. And so they were going to give him more money, and he refused to go to work. So there's a season of Sanford and Son where half of the season, like good 9 episodes of the season, 10 episodes, where Grady was the lead. Grady came in and basically played Fred's part. And Fred was in St. Louis. So there'd be scenes with Grady on the phone talking to Fred in St. Louis. He was in home in St. Louis visiting the family. But Grady was the lead for like more than half a season. And every single time I watch a rerun of Sanford and Son, it turns out to be a Grady episode. It's like, oh, shit. You got to change it. And then they gave him his own show, which was terrible. Grady. Oh, my God. Fish. How about Fish? The spinoff from Barney Miller with Abe Vigoda. I loved that show. It was like Abe Vigoda with a bunch of adopted kids. Like Fish, the grumpy old detective, who had stomach issues and had to go to the bathroom a lot. And I drink prune juice and I have to poop. That was like the joke, Abe Vigoda. But then Fish, he had like adopted kids and cute kids. I remember the theme song for Fish. Do yourself a favor. Look up the theme song. It's awesome. The theme song for the show Fish is fucking great. Like the theme song for Barney Miller was one of the greatest theme songs of all time. TV theme songs of all time. The theme song for the show Fish. Go right now. Do your little Googling. Go your little Google. Go to your YouTubes. You're probably on YouTube right now, but go to the YouTubes and check out and look up the theme from the TV show Fish because it's funky and awesome. So, yeah. And then there is, I don't know. The Brady Bunch, I guess, probably has the most bad. I think it's the show that spawned the most spinoffs and the most terrible spinoffs because there was the Brady Bunch, then there was the Brady Brides, then there was the Brady Bunch Hour, then there was the Brady Bunch Variety Show. There were like 4 or 5 Brady spinoffs and they all sucked. And then there were the Brady TV movies like The Very Brady Christmas and The Very Brady Assholes or The Very Brady Jagoffs or whatever it was. But the Brady Brides was the worst of all of them. But yeah, the Brady Bunch, all of those spinoffs were terrible. See, not everything can be a Xena. Xena, fantastic spinoff of Hercules. Xena? And so, there have been lots of spinoffs that are good, but man, I need to see Buddies. That's the one I need to see. But I believe probably the spinoff that gets the most heat, the spinoff that people make the most fun of and deservedly so, was another Happy Days spinoff. Joni Loves Chachi. Joni Loves Chachi, notorious spinoff with Aaron Moran and Scott Baio. And again, obviously, the spinoff is Joni and Chachi. They were boyfriend and girlfriend on the show, and then they had Joni Loves Chachi was the show. I remember it was on when I was in high school, and we mocked it. It was awful, absolutely awful. And I think that's the one that if you're going to talk about terrible spinoffs, everybody immediately, the first thing that pops into your mind when you think shitty spinoff, first thing that pops into your mind, Joni Loves Chachi. So, but yeah, now I'm on a quest to find episodes of Buddies with Chappelle and Jim Brewer. That's the one I really want to see. So, anyway, those are some terrible spinoffs. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch. And the fact that a lot of successful shows were spinoffs is, it's a viable thing. It just didn't happen for Milo. Didn't happen for poor Jess, the jagoff from Gilmore Girls. So, but anyway, I have to go because I'm gonna find episodes of Buddies, the spinoff of Home Improvement. That show sucked. Tim Allen, what a jagoff. Anyway, but Buddies, I'm gonna go find that. So if I missed any spinoffs, leave your comments here and all that cool stuff. And I'm going to find Buddies, and I'm going to go listen to the Fish theme song.